It was a Tuesday. Rachel Morgan, a woman of 32, faced an unimaginable shock: the sudden death of her husband, Kevin, from a heart attack. The impact hadn't yet faded when she reached out to her parents, overwhelmed with uncontrollable grief. Her mother's reply, delivered amidst the sounds of celebration for her sister Sophia's birthday, was dismissive. Could this wait until tomorrow? That evening, Rachel and her 8-year-old daughter, Lily, clung to each other, their world irrevocably broken. Rachel had never conceived of her own family abandoning them during their most critical time, but the events that followed revealed an even deeper betrayal. If you've experienced feeling let down by relatives when you needed them most, share where you are watching from and subscribe to connect with others who understand this profound pain. Rachel and Kevin's connection began during their second year at Northwestern University. She found herself struggling with an economics course, and he, the supportive teaching assistant, patiently guided her through concepts like depreciation curves after class. His quiet endurance was the first quality that drew her in, quickly followed by his contagious laughter and the distinctive way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. Their relationship blossomed throughout college, leading to his proposal on graduation day, the ring hidden within her diploma case. They married young, at 23, overlooking warnings from friends who suggested experiencing life before settling down. But for Rachel, Kevin was life itself. He was the partner with whom she desired to explore everything. Following his MBA, Kevin secured a position at a reputable financial advisory firm in Chicago. He ascended the ranks swiftly, impressing clients with his genuine honesty and sincere investment in their financial health. He possessed a rare combination, a strong grasp of numbers paired with a deep understanding of people, making him truly exceptional in his field. 5 wonderful years as a couple passed before they decided to start a family. What they anticipated being an easy journey became 3 years marked by heartache. 2 miscarriages, countless medical appointments, and a failed round of IVF left them emotionally spent and financially depleted. They had begun exploring adoption when, unexpectedly, Rachel became pregnant with Lily. The pregnancy proved challenging, requiring Rachel to be on bed rest for the final 2 months. Kevin worked remotely, dedicating himself to her care. He would bring her breakfast in bed, gently massage her swollen feet, and read aloud from pregnancy guides to both Rachel and their unborn daughter. When Lily finally arrived, Kevin's tears flowed more freely than Rachel's. He held their tiny daughter close, as if she were fragile glass, a depth of love evident in his embrace. For 8 beautiful years, they embodied the family Rachel had always dreamed of. Kevin coached Lily's soccer team despite lacking any prior knowledge of the sport, learning alongside her, watching online tutorials late into the night after she was asleep. He made it a priority to attend every school function and medical appointment. His calendar was meticulously organized with reminders of Lily's activities, color-coded by their significance. There were subtle indicators about his health that they both overlooked. Occasional chest discomfort he attributed to professional stress. Shortness of breath he dismissed as being out of shape. Their doctor suggested his slightly elevated blood pressure was common for a man nearing 40 with a demanding career. Take some aspirin, exercise more, reduce sodium intake. It was standard advice, perhaps taken too casually. The day it happened unfolded like any other Tuesday. Kevin prepared dinosaur-shaped pancakes while Rachel packed Lily's lunch. He kissed them goodbye, promised to be back early for Lily's school art exhibit, and left for work. His final instruction to Rachel was about grocery shopping. Don't forget to pick up more maple syrup, the real stuff, not that corn syrup garbage. A starkly ordinary final exchange. At 10:47 a.m., her phone rang. It was Amanda, Kevin's assistant. Her voice trembled so severely that Rachel could barely grasp her words. Kevin had collapsed during a client meeting. An ambulance was en route, taking him to Northwestern Memorial. The memory of dropping her coffee mug, the sound of ceramic shattering on the tile, seemed to resonate. Rachel called their neighbor, Ellen, to collect Lily from school, then sped towards the hospital, disregarding traffic laws, praying desperately the entire journey. But she arrived too late. Kevin was pronounced deceased at 11:23 a.m., mere minutes before she reached the hospital. A massive heart attack, they stated. Nothing could have been done. They offered these reassurances as if to somehow soften the blow. Seeing Kevin's body felt unreal. He appeared asleep, except for the unnatural stillness of his chest. His skin was still warm when she touched his face. She couldn't shake the expectation that he would simply open his eyes, smile, and declare it had all been a terrible mistake. The next few hours blurred into a haze of necessary arrangements and phone calls. The funeral home required decisions Rachel was utterly unprepared to make: cremation or burial, the type of service, his preferred suit. Questions that felt impossible to answer when all she truly yearned for was one last moment of comfort beside her husband. The most difficult task was driving home, facing the reality that she had to tell Lily her father wouldn't be returning. How does one explain death to an 8-year-old? How do you convey that the father who made dinosaur pancakes that very morning was gone forever? Informing Lily about her father's death was the most heartbreaking moment of Rachel's life. When Lily got into the car after school, she immediately sensed something was wrong. She questioned her father's absence, reminding Rachel of his promise to attend her art show, clutching her backpack tightly. Rachel pulled over, unable to maintain focus on the road. Turning to face her daughter, she held Lily's hands and gently began. Something very sad had occurred. Daddy had become very ill at work, and his heart had stopped. Lily's face crumpled in confusion, asking if the doctors could mend him. The innocent hope in her question shattered something inside Rachel. No, she explained softly, when someone's heart ceases entirely, doctors cannot fix it. Daddy had died. Lily gazed at her mother for what felt like an eternity, her blue eyes, so reminiscent of Kevin's, struggling to process the incomprehensible information. Then, she voiced the question that pierced through Rachel's soul. Did that mean Daddy wasn't coming home ever? As Rachel nodded, tears making speech impossible, Lily unleashed a cry that sounded inhuman, primal, the pure sound of a child's profound grief. She threw herself into Rachel's arms, her small body racked with sobs, pleading for her daddy. Rachel could only hold her, weeping alongside her daughter, parked on the side of the road as the world moved on, seemingly oblivious to their shattered reality. That evening, after Rachel had finally managed to soothe Lily to sleep in her own bed, clutching Kevin's unwashed t-shirt for comfort, the full weight of her loss descended. She retreated to the bathroom floor. The door closed so Lily wouldn't hear, and completely broke down. The physical agony of grief was overwhelming, like being repeatedly struck in the chest. She struggled to breathe, to think. She needed her mother and father. With trembling hands, she called her parents. They had been married for 4 decades, had navigated losses together. Surely, they would know what to say, how to guide her through this impossible time. Her mother answered on the 5th ring, the sounds of laughter and music audible in the background. She asked if Rachel could call back. They were in the middle of Sophia's birthday dinner. "Mom," Rachel choked out, barely forming words through her sobs. "Kevin died this morning. A heart attack at work. He's gone." There was a pause, and Rachel heard her mother cover the phone, speaking to someone else. When she returned, her voice was slightly more subdued, yet still distant. "Oh my goodness, that's terrible," she remarked, adding, "Are you sure? Maybe there's been a mistake." Rachel insisted she had seen his body. There was no mistake. The necessity of convincing her own mother of her husband's death felt like another trauma piled upon the grief. "Well, this is quite a shock," her mother continued, "but sweetie, we're in the middle of Sophia's 40th birthday celebration. Everyone's here, we have the caterers. Can you manage tonight, and we'll come by tomorrow when things settle down?" Rachel was incredulous. Her sister's party took precedence over her son-in-law's death, over her daughter and granddaughter's acute suffering. Her father then took the phone. "Rachel, this is awful news," he stated, immediately following with a question. "Was Kevin's life insurance policy up to date? You know, you should call the company first thing tomorrow. Not, 'I'm coming right over,' not, 'what can we do to help?' But a query about life insurance while Kevin's body was barely cold." Rachel's voice was hollow as she responded, expressing disbelief at their reaction. Her husband had just died, Lily had lost her father, and they were at a party. Her father, in the condescending tone he had used throughout her childhood, replied that Sophia had been planning this milestone birthday for months. Everyone had taken time off work to be there. They couldn't just walk out. Be reasonable, he urged. Reasonable, as if grief adhered to any logical rules. Forget I called, Rachel said, hanging up. Within minutes, her phone was inundated with messages from friends who had somehow learned the news. Kevin's college roommate, her colleague, even an old high school friend she hadn't spoken to in years. All offered condolences and asked how they could help. Strangers demonstrated more compassion than her own family. Their neighbor, Ellen, arrived with a casserole and sat with Rachel at the kitchen table as she attempted to compile a list of people to inform. Ellen offered to stay the night, but Rachel declined, needing to be alone with Lily, to begin confronting the terrifying new reality without Kevin. That first night felt interminable. Lily was plagued by nightmares, waking and calling for her daddy. Rachel lay beside her, stroking her hair, recounting stories about Kevin, his immense love for Lily, his belief in her bravery. Eventually, Lily succumbed to exhausted sleep, but Rachel remained awake, staring at the ceiling, the absence of Kevin's warmth beside her an unbearable void. Morning brought the crushing realization that this was not a nightmare she could awaken from. This was their life now, a life without Kevin, a life where her own parents couldn't be bothered to be present when she needed them most. Kevin's funeral was scheduled for Saturday, 4 days after his death. Those days passed in a blur of necessary arrangements, paperwork, and attempts to comfort Lily while barely containing her own grief. Her parents called once, briefly, to inquire about the service time and appropriate attire, black or a celebration of life with color. They offered no assistance with arrangements nor asked about Lily's well-being. The day of the funeral dawned bright and sunny, a cruel beauty for such a somber occasion. Lily insisted on wearing a blue dress, recalling her father's words that she looked like a princess in blue. Rachel helped with her hair, weaving a small braid along her temple, a gesture Kevin had often performed on special occasions. They arrived at the funeral home an hour early to receive guests. Kevin's colleagues from the financial firm were the first to arrive, somber in their dark suits, many visibly weeping. They had lost not just a coworker, but a friend. Each took time with Lily, sharing brief anecdotes about her father that she might later cherish. Her parents and Sophia were expected to arrive early as well, but they texted 20 minutes before the service was scheduled, citing traffic delays. They finally entered as people were being seated, causing a small disturbance as they found their reserved seats in the front row. Her mother offered a brief hug, her perfume overpowering, explaining the traffic and Sophia's difficulty in finding suitable attire on such short notice. Short notice, as if Kevin's death were an inconvenient dinner party. Throughout the service, Rachel was acutely aware of Sophia checking her phone, her father glancing at his watch, her mother dabbing at eyes that seemed dry, a performative display. Meanwhile, Kevin's colleagues and their friends were genuinely distraught, their grief palpable and real, a stark contrast to her family's detachment. Kevin's brother, Marcus, displayed true devastation, having flown in from Japan, arriving just hours before the service. He appeared exhausted and hollow-eyed, clearly having not slept during the arduous journey. He sat beside Lily, holding her hand throughout the service, their identical blue eyes filled with tears. When it came time to deliver the eulogy, Rachel doubted her strength. Her legs felt heavy as she approached the podium. But then she saw Lily, so small and brave in her blue dress, and found the necessary resolve. She spoke of Kevin's inherent kindness, his unwavering integrity, his boundless devotion to his daughter. She recounted his terrible jokes that elicited both groans and laughter, his irrational aversion to cilantro, his passionate advocacy for real maple syrup, and the consistent, unwavering way he always prioritized family. The bitter irony of those final words was not lost on her as she observed her parents, already gathering their belongings, clearly eager to depart as she concluded. During the reception at their home afterward, Rachel overheard her father conversing with her Uncle James near the drinks table. Kevin had been highly successful at the firm. On the partner track, he remarked, suggesting the life insurance alone must be substantial, not to mention investments. Rachel would be set for life. It required every ounce of her remaining composure not to confront him then and there, to demand how he could focus on finances on the very day they buried her husband. But she was too emotionally depleted, too focused on ensuring Lily was okay, to initiate a scene. Her mother and Sophia offered minimal help with the reception, leaving most of the effort to Kevin's colleagues' wives and Rachel's friends. They sat in the living room, accepting condolences as if they were the primary mourners, while Rachel moved through her own home like a specter, mechanically thanking guests, accepting casseroles she knew she would never eat. In stark contrast, Kevin's parents, despite their profound grief over the loss of their only son, were pillars of genuine support. His mother, Diana, took charge of caring for Lily during the reception, ensuring she ate and shielding her from well-meaning but overwhelming guests. His father, Robert, quietly organized the cleanup afterward, staying until the final guest had departed. The disparity between Kevin's family and her own was sharp and deeply painful. As she watched her in-laws support each other in their sorrow while simultaneously finding strength to support her and Lily, Rachel felt the absence of that same love from her own parents like a physical wound. Kevin's will had been mentioned briefly during a conversation with the funeral director, but Rachel couldn't yet face legal matters. Thomas, Kevin's friend from law school who had handled their estate planning, gently advised waiting a week or two before delving into the specifics. There's no urgency, he assured her. Everything was in order, and she and Lily were well provided for. Kevin had ensured that. As the house finally emptied of guests, her parents and Sophia made quick excuses about needing to start their drive before dark. They left with hurried hugs and vague promises to call soon. They didn't offer to stay and help clean, didn't ask if Lily and Rachel wanted company, didn't acknowledge that this would be their first night after officially saying goodbye to Kevin. Instead, Marcus and Kevin's parents stayed. Diana prepared the guest room for Kevin's parents and the sofa for Marcus. "We'll be right here if you need anything during the night," Diana said, embracing Rachel tightly. "You are not alone, Rachel, remember that." But as she lay in bed that night, listening to Lily's soft breathing beside her, Rachel couldn't escape the feeling that, in one crucial aspect, she was very much alone. The people who should have been her primary source of support, her bedrock in times of crisis, had failed her when it mattered most. 2 weeks after the funeral, Rachel sat at the kitchen table, attempting to navigate their health insurance situation. The doorbell rang. Lily was at school, her first week back since her father's death. Her teachers were attentive, sending regular updates, for which Rachel was immensely grateful. Through the peephole, she saw her parents on the porch, her father adjusting his golf shirt, her mother checking her reflection in her compact mirror. She hadn't spoken to them since the funeral. They had sent a few generic texts, "Thinking of you, hope you're doing okay," but there had been no meaningful communication. She opened the door, making no attempt to conceal her surprise. She hadn't expected them. "We thought we'd check in, see how you and Lily are doing," her mother said, sweeping past her into the house. "Is she at school? Good, we can talk openly." That should have been the initial warning sign that this was not a supportive visit, but Rachel was too emotionally depleted to recognize the subtle cues. They settled into the living room while Rachel, on autopilot, prepared coffee, falling back into the hostess role even though they should have been caring for her. When she brought in the mugs, her father was examining the new sound system Kevin had installed just a month prior. "Nice setup," he commented, running his hand along the speakers. Kevin had good taste in electronics. He did, Rachel agreed, the simple past tense a constant, sharp pain in her heart. After a few minutes of awkward small talk about Lily's school and her mother's garden club, her father cleared his throat, the familiar prelude to a serious conversation. "Rachel," he began, placing his coffee mug precisely on a coaster, "we wanted to talk to you about your situation." "Your financial situation," her mother clarified, exchanging glances with her father. "Now that you're adjusting to life without Kevin." Rachel stared at them, initially failing to grasp their implication. She wasn't sure what they meant. Kevin had left them well provided for. "Yes, well, that's what we wanted to discuss," her father said, leaning forward. "Your mother and I are getting older. Our retirement fund took a hit in the last market downturn, and with healthcare costs being what they are." The unspoken expectation hung in the air before Rachel understood. "Are you asking me for money?" Her mother showed a flicker of embarrassment, but her father pressed on. They thought, given Kevin's position at the firm and his life insurance policy, that Rachel might be in a position to assist family. After all, they were her parents. The sheer audacity of their request left Rachel momentarily speechless. Her husband was barely in his grave, and they were present, hands extended. "How much are you thinking?" she asked, her voice flat. Her father, apparently missing her tone entirely, brightened. Well, they had been considering something substantial would make sense, perhaps 50% of the life insurance payout. That, he reasoned, would secure their retirement and leave plenty for Rachel and Lily. 50% of my widowed daughter's support to secure your retirement." Rachel repeated the words slowly, ensuring she understood. The daughter they couldn't be bothered to comfort when her husband died because they were at a birthday party. Her mother flinched, but her father remained unperturbed. "Now, Rachel, there's no need for emotional reactions to this. It was simply practical financial planning." And, he added, they had come to the funeral. "How generous of them to attend her husband's funeral," Rachel replied, her voice thick with sarcasm. Her mother interjected, reminding Rachel that they had raised her, paid for her college education, helped with the down payment on her first house. They believed they deserved some consideration now that she had come into money. "Come into money," Rachel exclaimed, her voice rising, the accumulated hurt and rage of the past 2 weeks surfacing. Her husband had died. She hadn't won the lottery. She had lost the love of her life, the father of her child, and they were treating it as if she had stumbled upon a financial windfall. Her father's expression hardened. There was no need to be dramatic. Kevin, he suggested callously, knew the risks associated with his heart condition. He should have taken better care of himself. And now that he was gone, it was simply practical to discuss how his assets should be distributed. Family, he reiterated, should help family. In that instant, as her father casually blamed Kevin for his own death while simultaneously attempting to profit from it, something within Rachel snapped. The grief that had left her passive and numb for 2 weeks suddenly sharpened into crystal clear resolve. "Get out," she said quietly. "Rachel, be reasonable," her mother began. "Get out of my house," Rachel screamed, the force of her anger propelling her to her feet. How dare they come here asking for Kevin's money? How dare they blame him for dying? He was worth 100 of them, and they couldn't even be bothered to comfort their own daughter when she was breaking apart. Her parents appeared genuinely shocked by her outburst. They had never witnessed her truly angry, having raised her to be accommodating, to avoid conflict, to be the good daughter, while Sophia often played the role of the demanding one. "We're only asking for what's fair," her father stated stiffly, rising from his chair. "We're your parents, Rachel. You owe us respect and consideration." "Respect?" Rachel laughed bitterly. "You haven't shown me or Lily an ounce of respect or genuine concern since Kevin died. All you care about is what you can extract from us." "That's not true," her mother protested weakly. "We care about you, Rachel. We're just trying to be practical." Practical, Rachel countered, would be inquiring how their granddaughter was coping with losing her father. Practical would be offering assistance with meals, housework, or emotional support, not this vulture behavior. Silence fell over the room. Her uncle Terry looked uncomfortably at the floor, while his wife Barbara glared at her father, clearly as appalled as Rachel was. Into this tense quiet, Lily suddenly stepped forward, still clutching her envelope. "I have something to say," she announced in a clear, strong voice that surprised everyone. Her mother attempted a condescending smile. "Sweetie, the adults are discussing important things right now." Lily stood her ground, exhibiting Kevin's quiet confidence. "This is important too. It's about my daddy and what he would want." All eyes turned to her, this small figure standing bravely amidst the adult conflict. Even Sophia lowered her phone. "Daddy taught me that when people show you who they really are, you should believe them," Lily said, her voice trembling only slightly. "And when people only appear when they desire something, they aren't truly family." She turned to face her parents directly. They hadn't come to see them when Daddy died. They hadn't helped Mommy when she cried every night. They hadn't asked if she was okay or if she needed anything. They had only arrived when they wanted money. The raw, unfiltered truth from an 8-year-old's mouth seemed to land with different force than when Rachel had articulated similar sentiments. Her mother's carefully composed face crumpled slightly, while her father seemed momentarily speechless. Lily opened her envelope and withdrew a sheet of paper. She had created something for them, she explained, because she knew that's why they had truly come. She walked over and handed the paper to her father. It was a child's drawing, but glimpsed over his shoulder, it resembled an invoice. At the top, in Lily's careful handwriting, it read, "Bill for real love and support." Listed below were items like being there when Daddy died, $0 not provided, helping Mom when she was sad, $0 not provided, hugging me when I cried for Daddy, $0 not provided, and being real grandparents, priceless, but not paid. At the bottom was a total, 0. That's why they had come, right? For money. This was what they had earned. The silence in the room was absolute. Her father's hands trembled as he held the paper. Her mother began to weep, whether from shame or continued manipulation, Rachel couldn't discern. Sophia stared at Lily in shock, as if seeing her niece for the first time. "I think we are finished here," Rachel said quietly, taking Lily's hand. "Don't contact them again," she instructed, unless it was to apologize and demonstrate genuine change. Lily deserved better grandparents than they had been, and Rachel deserved better parents. As they walked out, leaving her stunned family behind, Rachel felt a strange mix of sorrow and liberation. They had lost more than Kevin. They had lost the illusion of a supportive extended family. But in that loss came clarity and the freedom to reconstruct their lives without the burden of toxic obligations. In the car, she held Lily tightly. "That was incredibly brave," Rachel said, expressing her immense pride. Lily hugged her back. "Daddy always said they had to stand up for what was right, even when it was difficult." "Was she right, Mommy?" "Yes, baby," Rachel assured her, tears streaming down her face. She was absolutely right. The drive to her parents' house had been tense, with Lily unusually quiet beside her, the manila envelope clutched tightly. Rachel had been so consumed with preparing for the confrontation that she hadn't paid enough attention to her daughter's planning. Now, driving away from the house where she had grown up, she felt equal parts pride in Lily's courage and sadness that she had been forced to mature so quickly. "Lily, how did you conceive of the idea for the bill?" Rachel asked as they drove home. Lily gazed out the window before responding. Daddy and she had watched a movie once where someone presented an invoice to a cruel person. Daddy had remarked that sometimes people needed to see clearly, on paper, what their true worth was. Her voice cracked slightly. She thought Grandpa and Grandma needed to see that they hadn't been worth much to them lately. The wisdom in her words, echoing Kevin's values, brought fresh tears to Rachel's eyes. Her daddy would be so incredibly proud of her today, Rachel told her, reaching over to squeeze her hand. So was she. Rachel's phone began to vibrate incessantly with calls and texts from her family, but she ignored them. This was not a negotiation. It was the firm establishment of a boundary. Any fallout resulting from this confrontation would have to wait until Lily and Rachel had processed the events. When they arrived home, Marcus was waiting on the porch. He had flown in early from Japan, intending to surprise them, and Ellen had provided him with a spare key to wait inside. Seeing him, so similar to Kevin in his mannerisms and smile, was both painful and comforting. "How did it go?" he asked, embracing them both. "Aunt Lily was amazing," Lily declared before Rachel could respond. She had stood up to Grandpa and made him understand his meanness about Daddy's money. Marcus raised an eyebrow at Rachel. "Aunt Lily." Rachel smiled despite everything. Apparently, she had been granted a promotion from Mom to Aunt Lily for her display of bravery. Over dinner, They recounted the entire event to Marcus. His expression darkened as Rachel described her father's proposed distribution plan, but he broke into a proud smile when Lily explained her invoice idea. "That was pure Kevin right there," he said, ruffling Lily's hair. Creative problem solving with a perfect touch of well-deserved guilt. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus and Rachel sat in the kitchen, drinking tea and discussing next steps. They would try again, he warned her. People like her parents didn't easily relinquish claims when money was involved. Rachel nodded, reflecting on her father's stubborn persistence throughout her childhood. She knew, but she wouldn't yield. Not only was their demand wrong, but it would also betray Kevin's explicit wishes. He gently questioned what this confrontation meant for her relationship with her parents moving forward. It was a question she had been avoiding. She didn't know, she admitted. A part of her wanted to sever ties completely. They had revealed their true nature so clearly. But another part wondered about the fairness to Lily. They were her only grandparents on Rachel's side. Were bad grandparents preferable to no grandparents? Marcus countered that Kevin's parents adored Lily and consistently showed up for her. Quality over quantity, he suggested. He had a valid point. Diana and Robert had called Lily regularly since Kevin's death, sent thoughtful care packages, and were planning an extended visit. They were grieving as well, yet they prioritized their granddaughter's needs. The next morning, her phone displayed 8 missed calls from her mother, 3 from her father, and 1 from Sophia. There were also numerous text messages, ranging from angry accusations to tearful apologies that felt more manipulative than genuinely remorseful. Rachel decided to respond to only one message from her mother, stating they needed to discuss what had happened. Her reply was simple. There was nothing to discuss until they could acknowledge the harm they had inflicted and demonstrate real change. Lily and she required time and space. She then blocked their numbers, a temporary measure to create necessary breathing room. She also contacted Thomas, informing him of the events and asking him to remain vigilant for any legal maneuvers her parents might attempt, despite his assurance that they had no grounds for claims. Over the following days, her parents employed various tactics to re-establish contact. They sent flowers with apology cards that spoke vaguely of family misunderstandings. They attempted to reach her through mutual acquaintances. Her father even appeared at her workplace, only to be turned away by security when Rachel refused to see him. Unexpectedly, her Aunt Barbara, Uncle Terry's wife, provided an unforeseen source of support. She called from her personal phone, which Rachel had not blocked, asking if they could meet for coffee. Wary but curious, Rachel agreed. "I want you to know that not everyone in the family condones what Brad and Carol did," Barbara told her when they met, referring to her parents. Terry and she had been horrified. They had only attended that meeting because they had been told it was about establishing a memorial scholarship in Kevin's name. Her honesty was refreshing, providing comfort in knowing that not all of her extended family were complicit in her parents' scheme. They had always favored Sophia, Barbara continued, confirming a feeling Rachel had harbored but doubted for years. They had all witnessed it, but no one had wanted to intervene. Perhaps they should have. A week after the confrontation, a formal letter arrived from her father, typed on his business stationery as if to lend authority to his words. It stated that unless Rachel was willing to reach a reasonable financial arrangement with them, they would be compelled to reconsider their relationship with her and Lily entirely. It was intended as a threat, presumably the idea that they would cut them off. Instead, it felt like permission to move forward without the burden of toxic relationships. She filed the letter with Thomas, in case it was ever needed as evidence of their intentions. 2 weeks after the confrontation, her mother attempted a new tactic, appearing at Lily's school at pickup time. Fortunately, Rachel had already alerted the school to the situation, and they immediately contacted her. By the time she arrived, the principal had politely but firmly asked her mother to leave, reminding her that only authorized individuals could interact with students. Standing in the school parking lot, her mother appeared diminished, less imposing than she had throughout Rachel's childhood. "You're turning everyone against us," she accused when she saw Rachel. "No, Mom, your own actions are accomplishing that," Rachel replied evenly. She requested that her mother not come to Lily's school again. If they wished to rebuild a relationship, it must begin with respect for their boundaries. "We are your parents," her mother protested, tears forming in her eyes. "You can't simply remove us from your lives." Rachel clarified she wasn't cutting them out. She was asking them to step back and consider how they truly wished to be a part of their lives. Did they aspire to be the grandparents who supported and loved Lily unconditionally, or the ones who viewed her father's death as a financial opportunity? The choice was theirs, but there would be consequences regardless. Her mother had no answer, and they parted without resolution. It was the last direct contact Rachel had with either of her parents for nearly 2 months. During that time, Rachel focused on Lily, on beginning to establish their new normal without Kevin, but supported by those who genuinely cared. Marcus stayed with them for 3 months, his presence a daily reminder of Kevin in the most comforting ways. He taught Lily to play chess, a skill Kevin had intended to teach her. He helped Rachel sort through Kevin's belongings when she was ready, sharing stories and memories that made the painful task bearable. Kevin's parents visited for extended periods, filling their home with warmth and authentic love. Diana taught Lily to bake Kevin's favorite cookies, maintaining a connection to her father through shared activities. Robert took her fishing, patiently demonstrating the knots Kevin had learned from him decades earlier. Meanwhile, news of her parents' behavior disseminated through the family grapevine. Aunt Rita called to apologize for her presence at the confrontation, explaining she had been misled into believing it was a gathering to discuss supporting them. Uncle James, who had initially seemed aligned with her father, sent a card expressing regret for his silence during the confrontation. Even Sophia eventually sent an email that, while stopping short of a full apology, acknowledged that the timing of their financial requests had been insensitive. It was a small concession, but the first time in their adult lives she had admitted any wrongdoing. 3 months after Kevin's death, on what would have been their 13th wedding anniversary, Rachel received another letter from her parents. This one arrived in a plain envelope, handwritten rather than typed on business letterhead. It was the first communication from them that felt potentially sincere. "Dear Rachel and Lily," it began. They had spent the past weeks reflecting on their behavior and the pain they had caused during an already unbearable time of loss. There were no excuses for what they had done. They had allowed greed and self-interest to override their love and responsibility as parents and grandparents. They had failed both Rachel and Lily, and they had failed Kevin's memory. The letter continued with specific acknowledgments of their actions, from missing the funeral to the attempted financial demands, devoid of the vague language of their previous apologies. They didn't ask for forgiveness or for communication to resume, only expressed hope that someday they might have the opportunity to demonstrate, through actions not words, that they could change. Rachel read the letter multiple times, attempting to gauge its sincerity. She then showed it to Marcus before deciding whether to share it with Lily. It seemed different from their other attempts, he observed cautiously, less manipulative, more accountable. But ultimately, he concluded, it was her decision whether to believe it. She set the letter aside, not yet prepared to decide how or whether to respond. The wound remained too raw, the betrayal too profound. Time would reveal if their remorse was genuine or merely another strategy. For now, Lily and Rachel focused on healing, on building their life without Kevin, but rooted in his values and love. Whatever unfolded with her parents would be determined by their future actions, not by promises or apologies, however well-crafted. As Marcus prepared for his return to Japan, with plans for future visits, he assisted Rachel in organizing a memorial gathering on Kevin's birthday. Unlike the funeral, which had been somber and formal, this was a celebration of Kevin's life, held in their backyard with his favorite barbecue food and music. Friends and colleagues shared humorous anecdotes about Kevin. His parents brought photo albums from his childhood. Lily presented a memory book she had created, filled with ticket stubs, notes, and mementos of activities shared with her father. Notably absent were Rachel's parents and Sophia, who had not been invited. It was a boundary Rachel needed to maintain for the time being, creating a safe space for grief and remembrance without the tension their presence would introduce. As the gathering concluded and guests began to depart, Lily gently tugged at Rachel's sleeve. "Mom, can we invite Grandma and Grandpa next time?" she asked quietly. "Which grandparents, sweetie?" Rachel inquired, though she knew who Lily meant. Mom's parents, Lily clarified, the ones who asked for money. She thought Daddy would want them to have another chance if they were truly sorry. Her compassion, so reminiscent of Kevin's, brought tears to Rachel's eyes. "We'll see," she promised her. If they showed they had genuinely changed, perhaps next time. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was an opening, a possibility that the future might include some form of reconciliation. For now, that was sufficient. The confrontation involving the invoice marked a turning point in their lives. In the immediate aftermath, the division within her extended family was stark and painful. Some relatives firmly aligned with Rachel's parents, viewing Rachel as the ungrateful daughter who refused to assist her family. Others recognized the inappropriate nature of her parents' demands and offered quiet support. Her Aunt Barbara became an unexpected ally, calling regularly to check on Lily and Rachel and occasionally sharing family news without pressure or judgment. Uncle Terry, while less expressive, demonstrated his support by sending Lily books and science kits, remembering her interests in a way her parents rarely had. The most surprising reaction came from her cousin Jennifer, Sophia's daughter, in her early 20s. She reached out via email about a month after the confrontation. She had always observed how differently her grandmother and grandfather treated Rachel compared to her mother, she wrote. What they had done after Kevin died was inexcusable, and she wanted Rachel to know that not everyone in the family believed she was wrong for standing her ground. Her message meant more than Jennifer could have known, offering validation from an unexpected source that Rachel was not crazy or selfish for protecting Lily's future. Rachel's parents' initial reaction to being cut off was a campaign of manipulation. They enlisted family members to plead their case, sent guilt-inducing emails, and even attempted to use Lily's school as a point of contact. When these efforts failed, they shifted tactics to more direct threats, suggesting they might contest the will despite lacking any legal basis. Thomas, Kevin's lawyer friend, responded to these threats with a firmly worded legal letter outlining the baselessness of any potential claims and the possible consequences of harassment. Following that, the direct pressure eased, although the emotional fallout persisted. Throughout this challenging period, Rachel was struck by the number of people who stepped forward to support them. Kevin's colleagues established a college fund for Lily, separate from what Kevin had already arranged. Their neighbor, Ellen, a retired teacher, helped Lily with homework when grief made concentration difficult. Even Rachel's boss at the architectural firm, where she worked as an office manager, displayed unexpected compassion, allowing her flexible hours to attend grief counseling with Lily. 6 months after Kevin's death, Marcus returned for another extended visit, this time with significant news. He was transferring to the university there, he announced over dinner one evening. He had been offered a position in the linguistics department starting the following semester. Rachel was surprised. Marcus had been living in Japan for nearly a decade. He nodded, glancing at Lily, who was practically vibrating with excitement. Kevin had made him promise to be there for them both years ago, when Rachel was pregnant with Lily. It was easier to keep that promise if he was in the same country, ideally the same city. The process of reconfiguring their lives without Kevin was not simple, but having Marcus nearby made it easier. He didn't try to replace his brother, but his presence kept Kevin's memory alive for Lily in countless small ways, from sharing his quirky sense of humor to exhibiting shared mannerisms that sometimes caught Rachel off guard. On Lily's 9th birthday, 4 months after the confrontation with her parents, Rachel received another letter from them. This one arrived with a modest gift for Lily, a book about astronomy that genuinely aligned with her interests, suggesting a level of thought that had been absent from previous gifts of unwanted pink princess items. The letter acknowledged the hurt they had caused and asked not for money or even forgiveness, but simply for the opportunity to see Lily on her birthday, if only for 15 minutes in a public place of Rachel's choosing, with Rachel present throughout the entire visit. After discussing it with Lily, who was cautiously open to the idea, Rachel arranged a brief meeting at her favorite ice cream shop. She established clear boundaries in her response. This was not a resumption of normal relations, but a tentative initial step contingent entirely upon their behavior. The meeting was awkward, but surprisingly free of drama. Her parents appeared genuinely chastened, focusing solely on Lily, asking appropriate questions about school and her interests without mentioning money, the past conflict, or making demands. They had clearly rehearsed their approach, but the effort itself demonstrated a willingness to change that Rachel had not anticipated. As they were leaving, her father quietly asked if they could possibly do this again sometime, perhaps next month. It was the lack of entitlement in his request, the understanding that access to his granddaughter was a privilege to be earned rather than a right to be demanded, that prompted Rachel to consider it. "We'll see," she replied. "I'll let you know." That tentative beginning led to carefully structured, occasional visits over the next few months. Her parents remained, so to speak, on probation, but they consistently respected the boundaries Rachel established. They never mentioned money again, never attempted to see Lily without Rachel's permission, and gradually demonstrated through actions, rather than words, that they understood the damage they had inflicted. A year after Kevin's death, they held a memorial service on the anniversary. Unlike the confrontation several months earlier, Rachel chose to invite her parents, making it clear that this was a significant test of their commitment to rebuilding their relationship. To her relief, they attended, appropriately somber and supportive, bringing a photo album of Kevin at family gatherings that Rachel hadn't even known existed. They remained in the background, not making the day about themselves or their relationship with Rachel, but simply honoring Kevin's memory alongside everyone else who had loved him. After the service, her mother cautiously approached Rachel. They had been seeing a family therapist, she confessed, attempting to understand where they had gone so wrong, not just after Kevin died, but throughout Rachel's life. It had been illuminating, she admitted. It wasn't an overnight transformation, and there were still awkward moments and old patterns that occasionally surfaced, but the effort was consistent and the possibility of genuine change, and perhaps eventually, reconciliation, began to feel real.